Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Newbill. I am the community manager here at Kobold Press, and I am with you today along this lovely design team to talk about the Player's Guide to Kickstarter, launching tomorrow. If you're listening live, it will already be live and/or concluded. If you're listening to this after the fact on YouTube, hi there, YouTube listeners. We notice you. I am joined by our biggest Discord AMA cast ever. And let me tell you, they are some amazing folks, but I don't want to steal their thunder. I will let them introduce themselves. Celeste, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Celeste Konowich. I'm the senior game designer at Kobold Press, the lead designer of the Tales of the Valiant role-playing game, and also the lead designer on Player's Guide 2. So very excited to be here.
Pass it on to Sarah.
Hey, hi. Yeah, Sarah Madsen, freelance game designer. You've probably seen me on a number of Kobold Press projects in the past, including the Tales of the Valiant Game Master's Guide. And I was very excited to contribute some stuff, but mostly the base building rules for the new Player's Guide too.
They're so cool.
Yes, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. I'm so excited. Mike, do you want to be next for us?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mike Wellham, freelancer for Kobold Press for several years now. Like Sarah, I worked on the Game Master Guide, and I did a wide variety of things for the Player's Guide too. So,
Yes.
I
Very
guess
excited
I'm
to
last.
touch on all those things. Yes, Mark, our for your first time at a Discord AMA, very excited to have you on. Why don't you go ahead and let the folks know who you are?
Everybody be gentle. Mark Riddle, art director, chief graphic designer with Global Press, and sometimes I get to write and design stuff. And as far as the Player's Guide 2 goes, the Theurge and Vanguard are primarily my fault.
Yeah, some of the stuff, too awesome big old classes coming to the book. Just humble brag.
Yeah, just humble brag. Two of the most anticipated pieces, most talked
Yep.
about, something like that. Well, thank you all for joining me. Like I said, this is our biggest Discord AMA cast ever. So I am so happy that we were able to get such an amazing group of folks together to talk about this amazing book that goes on Kickstarter tomorrow, May 27th. I'm so excited. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to dive right into the questions because I can already see the chat bleeding and bleeding and bleeding with amazing questions. So, bleeding much like monsters will do once players get their hands on these new options. I'm going to go ahead and dive into actually a bit of a more agnostic question about tabletop books in general, but we can kind of use the discussions of our recent books of Player's Guide 2, and the Labyrinth World book as kind of like a context of this conversation. Frog Prince asks, what is the decision process on selecting lineages for a core book versus a supplement or world book? Celeste, do you want to tackle this as the lead designer of the project?
Yeah. I mean, this is a really great question because in general, when you're designing something like Player's Guide 2 or Player's Guide 1, right, the challenge of it is making sure that you're building a robust toolkit that kind of covers all the bases, like from a general perspective, because these books are the ones that are going to be used the most, like across whatever kind of setting or campaign you're running for your table. So you always have to think in terms of what is the niche or like what are the types that are most necessary to fit like the widest audience in fantasy, whereas in a setting book like the Labyrinth, that is your time to get a little bit more specific with things. So there you can feel a little bit more free to step into the preciseness, right, of this particular setting. Like what is most important to support the story elements that people are going to enjoy about this setting or this campaign in particular. And that kind of like can, pinball the design process a little bit more. So it's definitely different designing for both. I would say though, when you get into like those little setting choices, you really get to pick the like the fun and the weird and the really interesting choices, rather than for something like Player's Guide 2, we want to go with the optimal choices to maximize, all the options for any kind of player that might be stepping into the game at large.
And that's a great touching point too. Player's Guide 2 can also be a person's first Tales of the Valiant book. right?
Yep.
As amazing as the original core books are, we made sure that this is exactly a seamless transition, something that you can pick up and play and integrate to your game with zero TOV experience, and even using your 5e games, which is one of the cocktails about being 5e compatible. Diving into our next question, I'm gonna have to give us a TBD answer on this one. Grimiscus asks, will the Player's Guide to new classes be getting added to the BFRD? We know that updates to the BFRD are constantly a topic of discussion within our community. This is something that we're always actively monitoring and keeping tabs on. Our leads, amazing Wolfgang Bauer, our editorial director Thomas Reed, they are having these kinds of conversations. We look forward to providing more context and answers to these kinds of questions in the future, but we don't have any of that information. Let's see here. I have stream remote. I'll click on people's names for questions. I'm sad. I believe this is Noveo because you're actually one of the KoboldCon title winners. Will spell points be a rule or thing that are incorporated into PG2? Some other content in the future, they like spell points. Do we maybe want to talk about some of the variant rules that are going to exist within this book?
Yes, I mean, considering tomorrow people are going to see the preview PDF, I think it's fine to just say, hell yeah, spell points are going to be in this book as a variant rule. They are the very first spell variant rule that we are including in the Player's Guide 2. As an optional rule, you can choose to incorporate at your table. So there you go. I know I've been very excited. A lot of you have brought this up in the Discord channel for Tales of the Valiant. Like, I wonder if they're putting them in. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I'm confirming it today. They will be in there for you. So for those of you who don't like the Vancian system, you're going to be very happy.
Amazing.
And be sure to download that PDF because the entire
oh yeah,
TOC is pretty much in that preview. So
oh
you
yes,
get to see all the goodness,
all the juice. Yeah, Mark worked very hard putting together this awesome, PDF of the preview content. So you're gonna get to see some other stuff from Mark in there too. But the full table of contents, working for the book is up there.
Another amazing question that will also be information that's revealed, but you know what? You're right, Celeste. The Kickstarter's tomorrow. Let's go ahead and just discuss some of this info now.
We can spill some tea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jakadar asks, can you share some of the lineages that will be in this book? He specifically mentions that he loves the Ratatosk, but what are some of the lineages that we can feature in this book, or that we can see coming out in this book?
I mean, I've been talking a lot, but y'all have access to the table of contents, right? What are your favorites?
Yeah, Sarah, Mike, do you guys have some favorites?
Right. And Mark, you had to make a bunch of art. Yeah, a bunch of art for these new guys.
Oh gosh, I don't. Do I have access to the table of contents?
Oh, here, let me. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna send it to you. The most recent one to you right now.
Okay.
Yes, same here, please.
Yeah, I'll send that along. But Mark, you got a ton of really great art done for some of these new lineages. Did anything really? I like all the elemental people art that we've been seeing. That's one of my personal.
Yeah. A lot of great art. I love I forget his name, the sap, the toad, whatever the
Sapovova, the toad or the frog like lineage option.
Nice.
Yeah.
When that art came in, I was like, I don't know what this lineage is, but man, do I like how it looks.
Yeah, them, and then I'm really excited too for the Halamento, which they're basically vegetable people that are coming into this. I'm always a huge fan of plant lineages, and with this, it's such a cool because it combines a lot of monsters that we've seen and published before into sort of a playable lineage. So if you love, our Allium Knights or our Garlic Folk, from the Tome of Beasts or whatever, we took all of that and kind of made the really super cool potato people. I can't remember. I think it was TOB 3 that we saw them, but they're amazing and adorable, and now you can play them. So I'm very excited. Huberkith, thank you, Frog Prince. Yes, that was the name. I was trying to think of that. You're awesome. You've got me.
Yes. Let's go ahead and This is a great question from a first-time listener. I want to make sure that we answer this. So their question's a bit wordy, but I'll go ahead and TLDR it. The question is, TOV utilizes a lot of the 5.1 SRD that is under Creative Commons. Will we be using any of 5.2, aka the stuff from D&D 2024 5e? This book is primarily Tales of the Valiant and D&D 2014 5e compatible, but as far as I'm aware, like I've played with people at a TOV table who have used both 2014 and 2024 options. Just because our design doesn't necessarily utilize 5.2, that does not necessarily mean that it is incompatible or not able to be played at the same table. Celeste, do you have any like thoughts on the potential compatibility or comments on this sort of thing?
Yeah, I think more and more people are starting to realize, and you see this if you're paying attention to any like recent reviews of our material. Now that 2024 is like kind of finally, out in front of people enough that the general public is looking at it. Folks are even more surprised than ever how easy it is, one for one, to basically anything in Tales of the Valiant. You can drag and drop or replace mechanics from 2024. They're pretty seamless to go side by side. In some things, it's requires literally no effort at all, like magic items, one for one, a lot of the spells, one for one. It's incredibly simple. So everything in Player's Guide 2, you can absolutely use in a 2024 campaign, and vice versa.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I can't read. But we have an amazing user who asked, we've heard mostly about the classes coming out with the pre-marketing for Player's Guide 2, but can you tell me a bit about the heritages that you are excited to see the public get their hands on? Anyone who's tackled heritage, I'd love to hear any and all of your commentary. Excited for.
Oh man. I wish Erin Roberts was here to talk about. She put together so many cool heritages for this book, and we've got some really, really interesting niches that are being covered with these. Because we went pretty general with the heritages for the first Player's Guide. So with this one, we have a really nice mix, in particular, of sort of like explorer type heritages. So things like islander, so folks who grew up like on remote kind of island chains, in the middle of the sea, and what that kind of life was like, and heritage. We also have things like the Fae Sworn, which is like if you're born into a community that is like under the control of a Fae or like really guided by Fae. We've got things like one of my favorite one too is the Kithrin, which are people who, like, from birth are dedicated to helping others. It's like a society of like first responder kind of individuals. There's just some really interesting new like storytelling potential baked into these in such clever and intriguing ways. I think it's going to be a really great complement to build out what we already had come out in Player's Guide 1.
Amazing. So another question came through, and people love hearing about not only what we are working on, but where we're going to be on. And I understand the excitement to ask these sorts of questions, so I do want to address it. Someone asked, with the MV2 and PG2 coming out to crowdfunders with last year, can we expect an awesome GMG2? If you did not watch, we had the Kobold showcase at KoboldCon. It was an amazing event where we got to cover all of the amazing books that we are releasing within the next, I want to say, year or so. I would definitely recommend going and checking out all of those things. We talk about how we're going to be doing a Northlands project. We're going to be returning to Midgard for all of our fans there. Of course, we have this project. We have some amazing other stuff that's coming underway. We talked about Necromancer, our new card game, Book of Blades. A lot of really great stuff was announced within that showcase, so I highly recommend checking that out. Those are the books that we've disclosed at this time that we're going to be releasing. But, as time progresses, you'll get more teases and more updates. So, thank you so much.
Not a bad idea. I'm just saying.
What Celeste said, not a bad idea.
A Game Master Guide 2, not a bad idea. Oh, interesting.
Sure, seems logical, doesn't it?
It sure does. What a great idea.
Sarah, I finally get to ask one of these questions. I'm so excited. People have heard about the base rules that are coming in Player's Guide 2. How will these work in terms of, not only D&D 2024, but also, we are known for having some base rules previously in a little book called Tome of Heroes. from little back when. So what does this look like? Is it its original own spin? Is it drawing on anything? Where did you kind of take the base building? I know you kind of led the charge on this.
Yeah, so I actually I looked at several different base building rules in several different games, not just, D&D. I did look at the D&D 2024 rules because, I mean, they're there. So, looking at it and seeing what they did and what worked for us and what doesn't work for us, and taking kind of inspiration where I can find it. But for our stuff, I think, and I talked with Celeste about this a lot, was we wanted cool base building rules for people who enjoy that aspect, right, of building up a home base, expanding upon it, putting in really cool facilities that you can use to do your downtime activities in. So like if you want to, everything from like making weapons and armor, you can put in a forge, but you can also do things like you can have a ballroom so that you can carouse with folks, and you get mechanical benefits to things. But we also were really the narrative element of base building and that sort of thing was really important to both me and Celeste when we were discussing this whole system. So one of the really cool things that I put in is this idea of hidden mysteries. So when you acquire a base, which you can do through either purchasing one or getting it from a quest or various different ways, however kind of your DM or GM wants to do it. But this building is a building that already exists in the world, and it has a history. It has people who lived in it before. It could have previously, been infested by goblins, and you were sent in to clear it out. So there are things that, as you are renovating and expanding upon your base, that you might discover in your base that can be, just fun little story elements that kind of expand the world of your base itself and the world that you're building in. That it can also be like jumping off points for quests for the GM, and character development things. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah.
Amazing. I know that a lot of fans are really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to diving into it. Base building is one of those like things where it's always like literally me and some of the marketing team were yapping in a coworker last week for like an hour and a half about how much we love Sims, right? And it's just like that inherent like love to just create like your own little piece of home or civilization, yeah, and especially to do it within this amazing game that we all know and love, right?
Yeah.
So we have another question from Elevation 4. I got to remember people's names now. And Mark, this is actually a question for you, Mr. Class Designer. How did you approach shaping the classes that you've worked on? Specifically talking for you about the Theurge and the Vanguard, the new classes coming out of PG2, around the gaps from the original TOV books. Was that something that you kept in mind? They talk about how, previously, like, the weird magic source was partially included in the original books with the goal of expanding in later books. So I know, Celeste, you also had a bit of a hand in that. Do you guys maybe want to tackle the philosophy behind designing these classes?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mark, you're the big idea, like, behind, the driving spark behind both of these. So I think that's a great question. Yeah, where do these ideas, like the decision on which these classes are, that totally came from you? I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, each of those two classes came from a pretty different space. The Vanguard very much was an answer to what I and a lot of people I think saw as a missing class type, so to speak. Not just in Tales of the Valiant, but 5e before that, and even before that. That as a lot of people I think have guessed, it's that warlord martial type class, that guy that raises that black flag, runs into battle, is controlling the battlefield, aiding his companions, etc. So I really wanted to create that class for TOV. Then there's a lot more to it, and you'll see. I mean, you'll see the preview of the class in the PDF tomorrow when the Kickstarter launches. But there's a lot more to it. But that was really the genesis of that class. I wanted to fill that niche that I didn't think was really filled yet. The Theurge came about kind of from a different thing, and it was just me. I don't always play spellcasters, but I certainly play them and I like them. And is something that is absolutely important to the game. You know, it balances things, et cetera, et cetera. Now, having said that, it drives me crazy. You know, as a spellcaster, I can't tell you how many times, you know, you sort of forget, you know, all right, I'm going to cast invisibility. Cool. And then I'm going to cast another spell. And the GM says, now don't forget, you already have concentration, so you're going to lose that. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, son of a.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was really, I wanted, in addition to, you know, it's always cool to cast arcane and divine spells, but I really wanted to start playing with concentration and still within the bounds of balance, is to break that rule and make it more fun and you know, lessen the times that I have to say, oh crap. Yes, that was
Yeah.
a self-serving class for me. Let me have concentration on more than one spell, darn it.
It is really interesting. Both the Thurge and the Vanguard are sort of like, I don't want to call them like advanced classes, but in a way they are, because both of them take a look at the really all the mechanics of the game and really encourage you to find new strategies and ways to dig into those rules and use them to your advantage, but not only to your advantage, but to the overall party. So both of these classes felt like really great picks for Player's Guide 2, because they are definitely going to be most effective in the hands of those people who just love, you know, getting into the mechanics of this game, right? Those folks with the deep understanding of like what it means to have these buffs on your allies and all about battlefield control and really breaking into those fun bits of the game that, I mean, they're not for everyone. It's not every player who's like, oh man, I love the mechanics, but I tend to find I usually have at least one player at every table, and I'm just who loves that stuff, absolutely adores that kind of mini game with themself experience, right? To find what is optimal and to break the rules in just the right way. And I think both of these classes are going to be so fun for those people at the table.
I absolutely. I mean, we go through organized play at various conventions throughout the year. It's always something we see players. There are certain players who love just experiencing the freshness of the mechanics, whether it's the luck system or the way we've structured how you get your spells, or you know, maybe they're going into the more nitty gritty of like the actual like, mechanics and design and really checking out those differences. I have a big feeling that both the Thurge and the organized play at Gen Con this year. That's a leak for you. Slide that in there for you.
Just slide it.
Yeah, just slide it in. We will get back to you. Question from Rumpelstiltskin. Will the compatibility license be getting updates for all the new core books? That is a answer that will come from higher up the chain. And we'll probably make a more like official PR announcement about something like that if it were to ever happen. So stay tuned. I definitely think that there is like a space where we could definitely like have like an actual touch base with people, and actually like, you know, have you ask those questions. We go back, we get the answers, and then we bring them to you. So we're working on something like that, but for now, TBD. Let's see here. Another question. Yes, a question from Frog Prince. Are there plans on rules similar to the sidekicks and or hired heroes that we've seen in previous KP books?
Oh man, well, I mean, Sarah can talk about. I think the one thing you didn't mention was all the really cool hirelings that are like kind of the more advanced hireling sort of system built into base building.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't mention that. So yeah, one of the elements of the base building rules is that you can hire people to work on your base in the various different areas that you install. So if you have a ballroom, you can hire servants to come work in the ballroom. And each of these little hirelings kind of come with a perk. A lot of them use just, the commoner stat block because they're just there to sort of fulfill a role. They do extra fun little things like the previously mentioned servants. might be able to sort of eavesdrop and report some gossip and good
the gossip.
stuff.
I
Yep.
love that.
Yep. You can hire somebody to work in your forge so that they can make, weapons and armor for you when you're not there. But also you can sort of upgrade some of these hirelings. So instead of using, sort of the low level spells or low level stat blocks, you can bump up their strength, basically, which can give them additional bonuses that they do. But then, if for some reason you need an extra hired hand to come out and adventure with you, you've got somebody with a sort of a beefier element there. So yeah, they're a lot of fun. I'm excited about the hirelings.
I think my favorite personal combination is one of the facilities you can get is the Skulk, which is like the seedy underground, like hidden, it's basically your prohibition style tavern. And if you have one of those, you can hire agents, which are either spies or assassins or like bandit lords, that can work for you to, take care of problems discreetly, which I liked how you phrased that in the turnover. And so you could have an assassin like working for you, for I'm sure pretty positive heroic reasons. But
absolutely, yes.
absolutely.
Only the best heroic reasons, yes. And it's with the Skulk, you can hire a poisoner too, so you can have somebody come in and mix up some poisons for you, and it kind of goes in hand with, like, if you have a greenhouse, then you can have some poison plants tucked away in there, and it's good times.
So Celeste wants a criminal empire. That's what we.
I do. I'm really excited. I know the minute I hand these rules to my current table, immediately what they're going to want to build is the Skulk, and like you said, the garden. So, and specifically the poisonous plant, like varietals. And I know they're also probably going to get immediately a barracks and just hire a bunch of soldiers, and then that will be the end of my campaign because it will be all outsourced.
Another question: will epic boons be expanded within Player's Guide 2?
Yes, I'm saying right now, both heroic boons and epic boons for every single class are getting a lot more options. And so we're going to have at least 3 new options for every single class that was in the player's guide. And then the new classes are going to be coming in with multiple heroic boon, even more than were originally in the player's guide. So each of them will have a starting, I think it's 5 heroic boon options and 3 epic boon options to pick from for the Witch, the Thurge, and the Vanguard. So there will be a lot of new options for people to pick from.
Amazing. And I do just want to comment on Wilson's question. All our bases belong to Sarah. Yes, Sarah is your real estate agent and landlord. Rent is due on the 1st, okay, and she expects
on the 1st. So it's due
very,
tomorrow
very
to the Kickstarter, right?
Yes, rent's due to the Kickstarter tomorrow. Another question about the Witch and the Third, since you brought them up, Celeste. One of the things that people have talked about is like, are the classes getting straight reprinted? Are they going to differ between their Deep Magic variations and their Player's Guide 2 variations? What is going to be kind of transition and or changes that we see of these classes as they go from 5e to Tales of the Valiant?
Oh boy, they're getting a lot. I know, the idea of, oh, well, you did these classes in 5e, surely they'll be similar. They're really like different classes here. You're going to see all of the stuff you loved about those classes in the 5e versions, but they are all getting the Tales of the Valiant treatment in that our Tales of the Valiant classes added so much more to the base classes than they had in 5e 2014. So you're looking at, we're redesigning them so you have features at every level. We're introducing things like obviously putting the heroic boons and the epic boons did not appear in the 5e versions of those classes. We're also adding a lot more options to what existed before. So like, while you'll see some of, the popular witch implements, right, that came out on the base class for sort of that base feature, we're going to add 3 or 4 more of the picks to the 5 that were already available, right? And a lot of the process for redesigning base classes for Tales of the Valiant involved going back and looking at things like, how could we make this base class stronger, right? How could we make this more fun to play? So we did exactly the same level of like rigor and, consideration to these classes as we did for the original base classes that were in 2014. So I think all of you will be very delighted to see how much more is in these classes. If you hold them side by side on paper, it's a pretty radical change. It's a huge upgrade from what appeared in Deep Magic 2 in those 5e versions. So I promise nobody is going to feel like they're getting something reprinted. That's for dang sure.
Amazing. One thing we love, power.
More power.
Yes,
But don't worry,
power.
Wilson. In the chat there, they are balanced against our other base class redesigns. So while I say handily that our fighter in TOV PG1 is much better than the 2014 fighter and has a lot more power. Similarly, we're doing that. We're aiming that same curve. We're not going extreme with these classes. We do want them to be balanced to work alongside all the classes we had in Player's Guide.
Yes. Now, this is a question, and when it came across, I originally was like, there's no way. But then I thought about how sneaky you are, Celeste. And I was like, no, I need to ask this question. Vermiscus says, was the commander fighter in Project Chiron, which, for those who don't know, is our Discord exclusive playtesting. It's free to access. Anyone can join. More playtesting on the way. Right now. Was it a sneaky playtest for some of the Vanguard mechanics?
Oh my gosh, you guys. Some of you have whispered this, and I'm like, how did they know? All this time. So you are all correct, you little prophets. That's exactly what happened.
Oh my goodness. I said it.
I know.
You're sneaky. Yep. Celeste is so sneaky. Yep. I would have never thought, and then I read the question, I was like, wait, that makes a little too much sense. I need to ask
Yeah,
this.
I know. I'm like, how did that... What? Some of you scare me with your psychic ability.
Now, I'm gonna ask this in tandem with a question of my own. The question from Wilson here is roughly how many new spells will we get to? I know it's a lot. Have like a rough number.
God. Yes, it's definitely already over 100 before we even factor in stretch goals. And then stretch goals add a ton more to it. So we're already, I think it was like 114 just base. And then if we add stretch goals, it goes up to something like 200. It's a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, I wrote 40 or something like that just myself. So I'm sure
and Mike wrote a bunch too, as
Yes.
well. Yeah, so, and we also had 3 or 4 other people writing spells, and I wrote a bunch too. So we've got a ton. And what's really great is because the player's guide skewed a little bit more towards arcane and divine, this is the book. If you love primordial, if you love weird, oh my god, you're gonna love these. You're gonna love these.
Amazing. Now, I do want to, in tandem, ask this because I love asking this sorts of questions because I know you guys hate answering them. But they're super fun to hear you answer.
Is it a pick your favorite of
yes,
your many
it
children?
is.
Why do you always do this to me?
Pick your favorite spell that you designed or that you had to read in the turnovers. And Mark, if you've gotten to see any of the spells, I'd love to hear from you as well. Please give me a favorite spell. Maybe it doesn't have to be the favorite, but the first one that maybe jumps to your mind, the one that the fans would be the most excited to chomp their little fingers into.
I have a favorite spell that I designed.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
It's called Subtext. It's a weird spell, and the gist of it is that you say one thing for general audience, but a selected group hears something else entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, nice.
I love
that one.
That like flavor of espionage. That is so cool.
Yes.
I've got one. Yeah, I've got one I designed. It's called Pluck Soul. And it basically, if it allows you to basically pull the soul from a humanoid, and then like just keep it for a little while. You store it in a gem, and then you can like consume it later for hit points. It's good and terrible stuff. So yeah.
Amazing. And that, again, really good intentions, right? Just like with the sculpt
Yeah.
base.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. That soul
mhm.
needed to go somewhere
Yes,
else
pluck.
for
Pluck.
its own good, right?
Pluck
Yeah.
soul.
Pluck. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Nope, yeah,
do.
totally.
Yeah, I'm going to do my traditional non-answer to this question and instead give you a category of things that I
All right.
really like. Because the Player's Guide 2 is very much kind of the follow-up. Player's Guide 1, oh boy, I can't even tell you how painful it was, the cutting process, because there was so much we wanted to put in the book. That was sacrificed basically on the altar of like, oh my god, we can't make this more than 400 pages. Like, what are we gonna do? So we had to sort of pick those bases and roll with it. So Player's Guide 2 was very much an exercise. And yes, finally, we can cover kind of those secondary categories that didn't get enough attention, right? So things like all of the aura spells that you might see from like the divine source, right? Those spells that maybe didn't appear necessarily in the SRD, but were like made. You look at those spells, you're like, oh, that's made for a paladin, or maybe a vanguard with a little magic touch, right? So these kind of aura spells and the smite spell, like, oh my gosh, this is just such a glorious catalog of smite spells. I know Sarah wrote a bunch of these. I wrote a bunch
Yeah.
more too, to cover these like smack them with your weapon, like, and activate spells. We've got such a great suite of those, and we took it in some different and interesting directions as well, so you can really customize your experience with those kind of spells.
Yeah, I definitely think I made a bunch of smite and aura spells, like, yeah, for sure. So there's a bunch of those in there.
Yeah, I'm really excited for like the combat kind of casting oriented spells going into this. I think that's probably my favorite group going into Player's Guide 2.
Amazing. Now we've talked a lot about the base building, right? And that's one of the amazing extra additions that we're going to be able to experience with Player's Guide 2. But Makita asks, downtime activities more so holistically. How much of that is going to be expanded on? What other kind of downtime activities?
So we have two main ones that are coming and that are going to support a lot of the facilities and stuff for base building. We felt we really had to have them, which was creature training and then plant care. So essentially, these are the categories that are going to cover everything. Like if you want to work with creatures, if you want to train mounts, if you want to train little battle animals, we have like a combat animal category that we do and expand in this book as well. So they're not necessarily mounts, but they're creatures trained to fight alongside you, right, in combat. And these are even things like, like your war elephants, right, that can like siege and just destroy the citadel, or like we have carrier pigeons like coming in here, right? Like specialized birds that can carry messages. So that downtime activity interfaces with that. And we have a ton of additional ways you can train creatures beyond just being mounts or combat. Like if you have your war horse that you love, you can put it through conditioning, right? With this downtime activity to increase its HP or to give it certain abilities, right? And then for plant care on the other side of this, like this is absolutely about managing, building, cultivating, like a magical garden or caring for these plants that feeds right back into crafting and, herbalism and alchemy. So like if you want to be able to facilitate, taking care of your magical plants so you can do special things with them, like these are those activities that are going to cover those like big niches that we really didn't get to cover specifically in the first book.
Amazing. We talked, previously about how the Witch and Thurge are really like these original iterations that are kind of just like building upon their 5e predecessors. We talked about favorite spells, right? And I made you guys answer the horrible question. Are there spells that are repeats from previous 5e Kobold Press material, or is this truly like an original set of?
They're all original in here, so you're not seeing anything that is. You might see things that combine some ideas or cover some space, right, from things you saw maybe in like Deep Magic or something, like some of these old spells that were just like kick-ass ideas, right, that maybe needed a little bit more updating or needed to be expanded into like a much more vibrant and interesting like ritual spell, for instance, right? But you're not going to see any one-for-ones of those spells from before.
Amazing. I love these sorts of clarifying questions. Get those
Oh
sorts
yeah,
of
super helpful too.
so helpful.
So I will say, if you're looking for more things to talk about, Mike made a lot of really cool subclasses for this book. I'm looking at his list now. So if anybody wants to ask what's your favorite subclass going into this
Oh,
book, I
no.
want to hear Mike talk about. You put so many, and they're so good. I'm looking at your list again, and I'm like, oh, we got to put Mike on the spot.
No, I did
Talking about
actually.
all of these.
I did just read a subclass question. I'm gonna go ahead and ask it right now. Then, since we brought it
Ooh.
up, we have a very cool selection of new classes that are coming in Player's Guide 2, but we also did have a new class that came in PG1, and fans are wanting some more subclasses for that. Mike, can you maybe talk about any of the subclasses that you made for the Mechanist?
Actually, that was the one I was most excited to talk about. So thanks.
Let's go.
All right, I did the Cog Augur. Basically, creates this really archaic or baroque mechanical device. It has dials and levers and all kinds of cogs and things like that, and it allows the augur to basically tell the future using this device. So it's like a thing that just kind of spins around, does its thing, and it'll reveal the future. But only the cog augur can actually make sense of what the movements in the device.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And the other one, I felt that the Mechanist needed to have a companion, just like most of the other classes. So I made the Toy Maker. And he makes, the Toy Maker makes little mechanical creatures that, follow him around, act as familiars or animal companions.
Mm-hmm.
Little Boopo. I remember that art piece,
Yes.
Mark, that we had with the Cool the Gnome and I argued, I was like, no, Wolfgang, let me put a bunch of clockwork birds in this drawing. And they're like, will the artist be upset? I'm like, no, please. All the birds.
I was going to say that piece of art is in the preview, but then I was wrong.
Oh no. That's so
There's
cute.
a totally different product, but the art of Kobold Press, at the end, there's a section on the art for the PG2, and that's in that one. So
Awesome.
never mind.
One of my favorites. It's like, it's almost like our Boopo from, Clash of the Titans. And
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it.
And that was kind of one of my inspirations for that subclass.
It's great. I love it.
And you want to know what, Mike? Since you had such a well-prepared answer, I am going to go ahead and torture you a little bit more.
Oh, no.
And
Make him answer.
yes, Mike, you must answer all the question. And also, I'm going to go ahead and I will also bug, I will bug you, Celeste, because I know the subclasses were not a single person in depth. Do either of you, outside of your Cog Augur or your Toy Maker, and we'll come back to the Toy Maker, I have another question around the Toy Maker.
Okay.
Do you guys have a favorite subclass or a subclass that you think the fans will be excited to see?
I was
I did. You turned it back on me. Okay. Yeah.
I was
you say it,
excited to
Mike.
work on the Stunt Archer.
Yeah.
It kind of builds a little bit on some of the trick shots or trick. There's one of the fighter subclass that exists that has this, kind of the stunts. So these are very specific to shooting arrows. So you can do a double shot. You can do an intercepting shot. You can basically hit a target and have the arrow impale or basically pass through that target and hit the next target in the line and deal a little bit less damage.
I think archers
It's
never get
essential.
enough love in the from like of the fighter subclasses.
Mhm.
So I really was stoked to see that and make sure our ranged. We have several subclasses going in here that like really give the ranged folks some love. Like there's one from Bashir that's also for the ranger. It's like an arrow binder subclass, which is sort of
Yeah, I
like
saw that.
enchanting arrows and sending things. So between the stunt archer, and the binder, there's a lot to love for people who love doing the shooty game, which is one of my favorite types of characters to play. So I'm stoked.
Mine too.
Amazing. We're gonna bounce back. We're gonna have a little fun here. We've got only just about 10 minutes left, maybe 15 minutes left until we wrap up this AMA, guys. So make sure if you have any remaining questions, if we missed a question that you are dying to have answered, put it in the chat. We'll get to it. We'll do our best. A quick question for you guys. It's a little bit more on the fun side. Since we brought the toy maker, I'm really happy that we brought this up because it's originally a question that I was going to save towards the end. No, I get to ask it. I'm so excited. If you were a toy maker mechanist, what's the little companion you would make? What are you making? What's your go-to?
Oh my gosh. Right now I'm really into like snakes, and I think the idea of like clockwork snakes, like all the little pieces, it's kind of like when you see, a 3D printer version of you can print those things together that like wiggle, they just come out in the scales. I would love to have like a big old snake that has that kind of the plating that makes it flexible. I think that'd be so cool. And it can spit poison, obviously, from
Of
like
course.
a little.
That's a given.
It has a little poison generator, obviously.
Again, also for only the most nice reasons, right?
Oh yeah. I build them in my skulk. Don't worry about it. They're
on your totally not maniacal, totally loving and caring throne.
Yeah,
right next
my
to
base
your.
is PG-13, for safety, but it's fine. They're only good boys.
What about the rest of you guys? Any specific companions that come to mind if you were to play a toy maker?
I think like a clockwork raven would just be cool as heck. And I mean, I have a particular affinity for that anyway, so I just think that's cool. I also think when I think clockwork critters, I think of spiders a lot. And I don't know, maybe that's just me and my like weird 80s dystopian sci-fi movies I used to watch, but clockwork spiders for sure.
Oh gosh, no.
Well, and then they can make like wire webs and like tripwire
Webs. Oh
that
my
come
gosh,
out,
that's
like,
so awesome.
Oh yeah, so deadly.
All right, Mark, we got
Watch
a
your
stretch
ankles.
goal art piece for you.
Yeah, that's really cool.
All right, Mark.
Mark, you're last up.
What's your
Oh, my
clockwork beast?
Yes.
Yeah, gotta share it.
You thought you were getting off scot-free,
Boy, I don't know.
Mr. Class Designer?
I sure did. Well, I guess sort of in the same vein as the Clockwork Raven. I love little, if I play a ranger with a pet, it's always some sort of hawk or something like that. I love, that hawk landing on my shoulder. So some sort of mechanical clockwork bird, hawk, falcon, something like that would absolutely be me.
Amazing. And yes, we would love to read all of your guys' answers as well. I see Raptor in there, a Clockwork Raptor, a Clockwork Frog has gotten a couple mentions. That is freaking awesome. I love the idea of a Clockwork Frog. A question from Aloysius Fett. How much of PG2 is going to be added into the BFRD? Asking again in case it got lost. We answered this a little bit closer to the top of the AMA, so I understand if it got missed. We are, actively like looking at, whether or not we add things to the BFRD. We know that updating it was a very key piece for a lot of you guys, and I know it's a constant discussion point. So you will probably hear some sort of statement and or announcement in the coming future. But for now, we don't have any specific details, at least for PG added to.
I will say we're at a point where we are absolutely watching audience interest in that sort of thing, and I have a feeling that if Player's Guide 2 does really well with funding, that will read as a very clear indicator that folks are really passionate about building up kind of the core catalog of this game. So tell your friends. I think more than ever, this is going to be a really important funding campaign for us for making those kind of decisions from a production level standpoint. So keep that in mind, that this is a good place to put your money if you want to show your passion in those kind of updates and changes for the future of Tales of the Valiant.
Apps. That's
100%.
Great context.
Yep.
Grey Links asks, while not seemingly in there, was there ever talk of bringing a blade-wielding magic hunter class fantasy like The Witcher or something of the sort?
Man, I feel like we have Yeah, we have so many classes that sort of cover that niche in different ways, right? That it felt like maybe there wasn't necessarily a direct need for its own base class, but between like, because the Ranger just got so cool in Tales of that. I'm gonna not ashamed to say it. I love my Ranger redesign, and people are going nuts for it, and it does a lot of what you would want, out of a Witcher. Right. And then we do also have with our embracing of things like poisons and alchemical concoctions and stuff, there is so much in this game that represents, at least to me, what it means to like play a Witcher that but you know what? There's always a possibility that we might consider something like that. We all know, the Blood Hunter is like a really big thing that folks love. And if there continues to be, a clamor for it and enough to facilitate and like see like, oh man, yeah, we need a class representing this. Like, there's no reason to assume it might not come up in the future.
Great answer. Another question. Are we getting more firearms? They could be compatible with firearms from Game Master's Guide or possibly even the competitor rules from.
We are not doing more firearms in Player's Guide 2. We felt that putting them in the Game Master Guide was the right call, specifically because so many Game Masters are really it's really divisive whether or not Game Masters are comfortable allowing that at the table. So we really wanted to be careful with what we put in the Player's Guide 2, since this is, a lot of stuff in here is for GMs, but also it is primarily player facing. So it was absolutely a tactical call to not put firearms in Player's Guide 1, and we're sticking by our guns on that decision for Player's Guide 2. See what I did
gosh,
there?
The dad jokes on Memorial Day.
See what I did there?
So does this mean that there's going to be like a table of contents for dad jokes in the back? So is that what we're doing?
Yeah, a dad joke generator, coming in, dad's, game mastering guide.
All right, I've got my new Friday marketing blog post ready. Dungeon dad jokes, love it. Shout out Dungeon Dad, love him. So we've talked about a lot of the newer lineages that are coming on, right? We talked about like the vegetable people, we talked about the frog people. Are there any expanded options from P1 in terms of the original lineages that came in that first set of player options?
Yes, we are doing 2 in addition to all these new lineages. And our new lineages also actually include a couple that we are revisiting that are like core to Kobold Press identity. So like I'm gonna say it, we were like the first 5e company to do the Dampier. We did it way before WotC put it in Van Victens. But we're like bringing in our cool version of that into this book, so people can play their, tortured half vampire, half mortal lineage people. So you're going to see some classics like that. And like the Shade is returning as a lineage option here. But in addition to just those lineages, we're also doing expanded lineage options. So this is like more options for the Beastkin, right? So we have rules there. So when you go to make your Beastkin character, we have a couple more variants. Like if you want to play the Burrower now instead of the one of the 4 that was in there, we're providing you with that. We're also doing another thing, which is variant lineages, which are going to be things like the Duergar or the Drow, which are close to existing lineages, but we define them as like it is a new set of lineage rules because they fundamentally evolved basically different than like standard elves, right? Because the Drow were in a whole subterranean below the world, right? So that actually changed some of their physiological traits. And we felt that the variant lineage system was a really good way to represent that. So you can look forward to seeing that and how we handle that in this book.
Amazing.
Yeah, Celeste, I was going to say, now that I was looking at the table of contents, that the 2 lineages I was most excited about were the Dampier and the Shade. So you brought them
And
up.
here they are. I figured y'all are a bunch of spooky.
Yeah, I was
friends.
like, just in case anybody was wondering who I am, that's
yeah. It's all right there.
I love
we
it.
do have some variant Siderians coming in there, Silent, confirmed.
Just to say before we go, it just occurred to me, I just remembered a kind of a fun little instance during the Vanguard between Celeste and I. It was sort of a example of design and art and
Mm.
serendipity. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
toward the final development stage of the Vanguard, I remember Celeste said, I think we need one more cool ability," and we were kind of going back and forth. And then I said, if you any of you guys remember the initial TOV kind of preview beta kind of PDF we put out, the cover of that was that cool warrior, raising the black flag, rising over his enemies and all that kind of stuff. That really awesome. Why I sent that picture to her and said, well, we're kind of retroactively going to say that's really a Vanguard, and we're getting new art for it, but it's going to be based on that guy. So he's the Vanguard. So, and he's got that cool banner. And then back and forth, we were like, oh my God, he's literally raising a banner, a
Yeah.
black
That
flag. Why in the world shouldn't the Vanguard have an ability called raise the black flag? So it's just like,
yeah.
I heard Angel, like, oh my God, why would he not? So
Yeah.
now, of course, the
No.
Vanguard, one of his abilities, really raise the black flag, which I think is
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, it was like such a oh duh moment. So now the class has a war banner feature is like part of the core class identity features, and you can pick from various flags, and one of those obviously the black flag. You can raise as your type of banner. So it was that's one of those just kismet moments, right, where art and design and history all lines up to make something just like, oh yeah, obviously. I'm glad you pointed that out,
Yeah,
Mark. That was like such a great moment.
that was so fun.
And that like just encapsulates all the way back to like all the way back on like literally like my first week at this company's, right? And to think this is how far we've come, and now we get to see it actualize itself in a whole new form in a way that puts the actual power back in the player's hands. I think that's an amazing place to bookend it. We can go ahead and call it a night here. Once again, my name is Zach. I am the community manager here at Kobold Press. Thank you so much for joining us. I have been joined by Celeste Konowich. If you know yourself and where people can find you.
Yeah, like Zach said, my name is Celeste. I work full time at Kobold Press as their senior game designer. I work all day, every day, growing this game and developing Tales of the Valiant. So the best way, honestly, to keep your eyes on me is to watch all the things that are coming out from Kobold Press. And honestly, like I said, this project, above all else, is really important for the future of Tales of the Valiant. And I would love to see your support and showing up for this would mean the world to me and the team here. So thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. Let's fucking knock this out of the water, guys.
Also joined by Sarah. If you would like to tell the people where they can find you.
Absolutely. I'm Sarah Madsen, freelance game designer. You can find me on Blue Sky at Unfettered Muse is my handle. It's also my handle on Instagram, on the Hell site formerly known as Twitter. And unfetteredmuse.com is my website where you can see all the various projects I've contributed to, as well as my novel and short stories and all the other writing I do. So, yeah.
Amazing. And I'm also joined by Mike. If you people the same.
Okay. I am on Facebook as Mike Wellham and on Blue Sky as MD Wellham, no longer on the Hell site. And I appear every now and again on the Kobold Press blog, and I do a monster a week, although I missed last week because I've been trying to finish a freelance assignment for friends called Mythopoeic Rambling .wordpress.com, and I will link that in the chat.
Thank you so much. And Mark, where can the people find you? Anything that you want to shout out specifically? All this wrap.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest social media guy. Mainly, you'll find me here on Discord or on either the Kobold Press Facebook page or the fan page. I post there, and I'm going to echo what Celeste said. This Kickstarter is for a book that we are so passionate about. Have just poured everything into. So yeah, please show up and support us tomorrow. Please spread the word. On your own social media, if you're part of any kind of RPG forums, message boards, spread the word. It's we would be so appreciative.
absolutely. And one final thing to say, guys. I would not be the amazing community manager that I am if I did not also give you guys one final tidbit of love. And with that, enjoy the Player's Guide to preview. You guys can go ahead and experience it now. I just dropped the link in the Discord AMA chat, and with that, we will call things a wrap for tonight. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.